Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, and welcome to Conscious Talk Radio, and I'm your host, Linda Summers, and we've got a fascinating show for you tonight. The topic tonight is Develop Faith to Open a New World, and our guest is unidentified as he is a public figure and wishes to be anonymous. So with that, I'd like to welcome our guest to the show. Hi.
Hi, Linda.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. And before we even get started into our topic, I want to let all the listeners know if you're listening in and you have a question for the guest, or you just have a question that you'd like to start, a statement or something you'd like to say, please do call at 347-850-8423. So we welcome your comments, your questions, and anything that you'd like to share with us. So let's dive into this developing faith to open a new world. We had talked a little bit last week. I don't think it was on the show, but it may have been afterwards. You and I talked about faith is not knowing but knowing, and how we were talking about one must be willing to accept. So what would you say when you say what is willing to accept, what are they really asking for?
What are they willing to? Well, my statement of faith is that it's not knowing. You don't know where you're going. So having faith that you're going to get there. And it sort of takes you outside of yourself in that sense. But I'm sorry, what was your question specifically? Before I want to clarify that.
When we say, you had mentioned, what am I willing to accept? And so I think when we dive into this faith of not knowing, right, and we're diving into this new world to connect to consciousness, you had mentioned the statement, what am I willing to accept? So I think it's... what
am I willing to accept or expect?
Yeah, accept, A-C-C-E-P-T.
Oh, well, and I don't remember exactly when I said that, but what I think I meant by that is that, well, people often say, okay, well, why isn't the thought is always, well, why isn't something happening to me? Why am I not experiencing something? Or you experience something, you say, well, why isn't more, And I think what I'm saying is what you're willing to accept, just that, if you're going to have resistance. So it kind of leads back to this idea that are you aware of your resistance? And I think when you can be aware of your resistance, I always think there's going to be a level of that everywhere, then you can get to that place where you can really know what you're willing to accept or not. So if you know what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with, it's a better expectation that you have an idea of what can come to you, right? Because if you don't know what you're willing to accept and what you might be resistant to, which is really hard for a lot of people. They don't want to feel that they're resistant to something. Most people don't like that, and they kind of do their best to deny it, which to me kind of goes back to this idea that, to be where we are, we've got to be in some element of denial. But when you can accept what you're willing to do, it also means, or experience, it also means you're willing to see what your resistance towards, and then through that you'll get an idea if you can really ask for what you're willing to ask for. Like somebody says, I think a classic one, and I know I've done this, is, you just come down and talk to me, and if you're in front of me, I'm gonna go along with what you say. But if you really have faith, I think that possibly could happen. What you might find, which I would think most people would be, is that sounds very horrifying. I remember once I had, just thinking about, I was doing that. I was in an apartment back when I lived in another state, and I was just kind of praying and saying, I can take that visitation. Okay. And then I started, and I don't know if I was hallucinating this, but then I started hearing these steps. And then I know I told you once about a bird thing when I was meditating. Well, getting into it more unless you want to. The thing where I was meditating and the bird kept hitting on the glass, and I thought it was Satan. But here, the steps were starting there. They were getting closer. There was multiple ones, and my mind instantly went to there are aliens here, and whether they're going to abduct me or whether that just sounds very frightening. I would just it's like, okay, never mind, God, never mind. I don't want to do that. So, while it sounds really nice to have these experiences, you really got to know what you're willing to tolerate, because just saying, hey, I want this to happen without really contemplating that it could happen won't leave you open to what you're comfortable with. And when you know what you're comfortable with, you can really work with truth. When you don't know what you're comfortable with and you don't know why you're doing something and you can't accept responsibility for yourself and you're reflecting things, you're being blocked by yourself. You're being blocked by your identity, and you don't know about it, so it's harder to feel the truth, right?
Yeah. So because I think that's what I was talking about. You kind of led into that, because what I was going to say is it's really basically was referring to, are you ready to accept the not knowing? So it's really in your asking, are you ready, and do you have the faith to step into the unknown of what you don't know what is possible in return to receive, right? And that kind of goes into the self-worthing and also the respect thing. But I think you're right. I think, and I am guilty of that in the sense of saying that I would love to have these experiences. Is there a part of me that's afraid? Yes. I would have to say I would be lying if I said I... Exactly.
Then you're worthy. You'd have to be, because you're recognizing that you're scared. And if somebody really wants these things, fear is something that you're going to have to go through. And, it's kind of hard to know what can actually happen. It's hard to know where that line falls. So it's scary. And, we know with me, I've got so much energy that, something happens and then I can't figure it out, and the energy starts spinning around, and then I get a little nutty because I can't, can't get it to make complete sense.
Mm-hmm. So what did you do with that situation where, for yourself, did you go into denial and resistance when you felt, okay, this is aliens, the steps coming, because you were asking and you're like, okay, God, forget it? Because I think, I can't say that.
There's two instances that I can remember. One where I was meditating and I connected to this place that was deeper, and every time I did, the bird hit the sliding door, and I would look up, and then I would get scared. I would go back and find that place, make that connection, and then the bird would hit the sliding glass door. And then I just started thinking it's Satan. I think because, and it was the same thing with the footsteps. It was just, it was scary, Mm-hmm. It was like, okay, I'm asking for some visitation, and it might have been happening. I was hearing footsteps. Maybe I was hallucinating. I would only let it go so far because it scared the hell out of me. It was like, okay, because I can still remember, just when you're doing that, when you're scared, you start to have kind of, you just start thinking, you just get these clear pictures of fear. You know what I mean? And in that moment,
you start that tunnel.
Yeah, those dark places, right?
Yeah, you start thinking the worst.
Yeah. And when I was in that moment, I started visualizing a small closet with feet walking in the closet, like these little small people walking in the closet. Because, when you're a kid, you open the closet or you look under your bed, Mm-hmm. But also the bird was scary. I thought the bird was Satan. And then, once I took it down to a practical standpoint, I said, I was really pacing. I was really scared. I was like, listen, the bird isn't Satan. The bird just attracted to something you're generating. And then when I did that, calmed down, and I opened my eyes, then the bird was just sitting there staring at me. When I made that connection, I looked out, and it was on a limb right in front of my sliding glass door, just staring at me. And I was like, oh. So,
well, do you think do you think the possibility, because there's two things I want to say, do you think the possibility of your energy, because we're all connected, right? And so the animals and the insects and everything feel our vibration, feel our energy, because you've taken your energy and expanded outside of yourself. And so this bird felt that energy, and like, you know, because it is an aspect of God as well. So to come into your fields of energy, and it sounds like that's what really kind of you did in a way of easing your own mind.
Yeah, I think I must have been generating something. And if we, something we know about birds is that they follow. I don't know if you want to call it magnetic, but they follow some kind of magnetic current on the planet to migrate. So maybe I created some sort of magnetic field. I think that's probably the best explanation, and the bird responded to it. Not in the sense that we would think, oh my God, the bird is going to turn into a human, but this is just how this is a very practical answer, and that's the important point, because people typically, when they have these experiences, they don't want to look at it from a practical standpoint. But you can always explain things from a practical standpoint, and when you can, you have something. Because then, and it's important to rest your mind on the practical, at least for me, because I get less scared, I get less nutty interpretations, and I go, okay, well, that can make sense. Mm-hmm. Now I can do that. I talked with a minister actually during the week, and it was very interesting, because a lot of what I experienced is extremely similar to Christianity, but it's not really Christianity. I'm definitely influenced by Christianity, but I'm also influenced by a lot of other kind of religious, spiritual thought. But, it's important. I mean, and to cap that off, it's just really important to know what you're feeling, and not just assume you're comfortable with everything, or for that matter, assume you're scared of everything, Sure. I don't know if it would be as easy that way, but it's really important to take hold of yourself, and especially in these things, it's you being worthy, not you convincing God to do something for you. It's always there. It's always there, and if it's always there and you do the time, you can't be in the time at all times. But if you do the time, you do your dirt time, you walk around in kind of a merged state with nature, you're going to have a higher probability to do that, which also means talking about faith. And what was your question again? This actually probably fits right perfect into it, but I want to make sure. Faith,
well, we really kind of answered that, because it was really about
right.
stepping into that, and then you had mentioned about the bird, and I was just saying that the possibility of, going into this state and expanding your consciousness, which brought that in. But there was another question to that, because I was going to ask you, when you had mentioned you wanted a visitation, do you feel that it would be more specific as to asking for a visitation? Or is it, do we assume that it's going to be the angels, archangels, God, Jesus, or, someone else,
You can't have any preconceptions, because it doesn't matter what's in your head. That's a thought you're generating. And to really become, in line with nature, you have to do that dirt time. Now, obviously, you're going to move in it. You're going to move through it. Something might happen at a later point. You might have a desire. It seems reasonable to assume that if you want to know the truth, and you want to know it in such a way, it's all right to be given something. It's all right to be given money. It's all right to be given love. It's all right to be given freedom from depression. But that's not what I'm thinking you're trying to do. I think what you're trying to do is you're trying to connect with love. And these things are a byproduct of love. It doesn't work the other way around. You know what I mean? There's no reason you shouldn't get these, but they're not what you should be looking for. I mean, they are what you should be looking for, but in this format, you should only be looking for the truth. Because if you're looking for the truth, then you're playing on God's terms, and you're opening yourself up to what nature quote unquote, would have of you. Not that we know that it wouldn't necessarily have anything of you, but that's an important distinction. So in the end, if you have some expectation of a greater love or some idea that's consistent with what the truth would want. So, in my understanding of the truth, all things are kind of unified by some extent. So therefore, if you want a unification of all things and you connect with nature, that calls the reason that you're going to be a little closer to experiencing that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where if you wanted financial freedom and you tried to attain a natural order of things, that's pretty far off, and you'd have to be pretty skilled. And even me, in saying you have to be pretty skilled, something arises in me that's really wrong. I don't really know why. And I'm not opposed to finances. I'm not opposed to people making money. It just doesn't feel right, and I don't really know why.
Well, and I would say that what comes to me with that is that if we're going into it because we want more money, it's if we really go back to the perfect causal body of God, that everything already exists. It's just a matter of aligning with it, because if there's this perfect causal body of God, which I believe that there is, that you can attain, that you can have everything, it's not that you have to seek for it. It's just like you were saying, it's being respectful and it's being worthy, and it's having that come from your heart and stepping into the consciousness, which of what you're calling is truth, God, right?
Yeah.
So, and it kind of goes back.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and I'll let you give it back to me in a second. Once again, just so people don't get lost in the comment of you have to be worthy. This is true, but worthy is both a very hard task and not a hard task. To me, all that it means is that you're learning to release at least enough of your identity to realize you're in resistance, realize that you mutate the way you want them and the way you don't want them. And then when you don't do that, that's how you connect with truth. And when you do that, you're worthy and you're connected with truth. It's a result thereof. Anyways, I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify that.
No, and I also feel what comes up for me as well. I feel that really it's an essence of really asking ourselves before we even enter into that conversation of having a visitation is to ask yourself why. Like, really, what is the purpose? What is your agenda, your intention behind in the connection with Source, right? I mean, it could be for greed, it could be for selfishness, it could be for a lot of reasons, or it could be just the fact of feeling what it feels like to be in the oneness and know what it's like of being one with everything, and feeling that expansion of people. Like when you see another person, it's really seeing another person and not just seeing someone, who maybe has lost a limb and you're like, oh my gosh, or, someone who just doesn't, and I don't even want to say that look normal, but, we have this thought process of, oh, that person's normal and that person's not. It's like, really, then you have to define what is even really normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we have this idea of what we think is, right? So I think that's what I would say first of all. It's like, really, what's your why? Why do you even want to enter
what's your
that?
what?
I mean,
oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's a hard thing, because I think at the same time that it's also verification, So it's very easy, like you're saying, to get fixated and want to have those experiences. I'm very fixated on them. I mean, once you start having things like that, I think a part of you will always wait for more, and they can be the pointless, stupid things, potentially of no value or value that you can't see. And I don't think you could stop yourself from caring about what that means. Once you have those kind of things, you just can't go back. You want more. I think that's natural. At least I know that's natural in me.
Yeah, and I don't think that's for selfish purpose. I mean,
no,
I
so.
shared with you an experience that I had, and for me,
it's strange, and something of the strange and something of the unexpected and something of the unexplained is worth remembering.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I'm sorry, what were you about to say?
Oh, well, I was just saying that, I had an experience that I had shared with you, and so for me, because I had been for me in general, I would love to have these experiences, to know what that feels like, to have that sense of, and I feel that I've had it, but maybe we're unconscious of it. But when something happened, to that length, it's like, wow, that would be really awesome to have that experience, or to have something like that, right? But not in a selfish sense, but in a sense of really wanting to be in that connection, to know what that is, and to be able to help others to be able to have that experience as well, which is really what we're talking about, is that, to enter into these types
And furthermore, just because there's a selfish content of attaining this doesn't mean that that's wrong. It depends on the nature of that selfishness, in the sense that I need to have something happen, or not I need, but I want something to happen. There's a certain, selfishness to that experience, wanting to experience those things for yourself. I don't. Once again, I'm not sure no one's ever going to be perfect. The idea that you'll be completely enlightened when you have these experiences, I think it's just a very good deceptive force between nature and that which separates us, to stop you from actually experiencing it. So, the idea that you're going to be perfect, that's the main thing. The idea that you're going to be perfect, it's just a good way for you to deny this and deny that and say, I'm not up to par, so I better not show up.
But what do you mean by being perfect?
I mean, people are inconsistent. People are have thought process and belief systems that they're unwilling to confront, and the idea that you should be able to 100% deal with any component of you that is wrong, it's not right. I mean, people are what they are, but what is important in that is that you accept that you are that, right? And it's reasonable that you can come to realize that you do these things. I don't understand why that would get in the way. I don't understand why that wouldn't be possible. But what we don't know is that you would fully transcend your issues. Now, once again, we can completely and reasonably assume that as you come to terms with that you have these, you can create systems in place so that you work better with them. But I don't think, in the sense, I think it's a delusion, it's a form of resistance that nature would favor you to have, which I don't know how much I've talked about that, but that'll confuse people, that you think that you have these experiences as you're pure. And there is only so much purity to be had, which I'm sure is very confusing with everything else I've said.
Yeah, so what you're saying is that to have these experiences that would be thinking that they're pure?
Yeah, if you're this connected with God, somewhere, somebody might be thinking, or I would think this, and this is really problematic. Oh my God, he is so special, or they're so special. There must be something about, or you get, or those people present themselves as gurus, and they're like, it's just not real, There isn't.
No,
you can be happy with things, but you can't be in assumption that you aren't flawed. And a lot of people, you get the notion that they're saying flawed, but there's a sense of something's a little off. They're still penetrating that thought that you must transcend to some place that I'm not so sure that you can. So, I mean, I don't know these things for sure, but it's just my thought and expectation on the matter. And maybe just because I'm so completely racked and I've been gifted enough to experience these things, and while I've always been, really, really wanting to know the truth, I've been amazingly dysfunctional in many ways, and therefore what I'm trying to say is a person's good news, a person's dysfunction does not shut them out from the truth, because whatever you think your dysfunction is, it's just not worth that much. It really doesn't matter, because what matters is people's compassion towards each other. Dysfunction is dysfunctional when no one's willing to try to understand you and love you. Then it's then it's a look at me, I'm stained. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm.
So.
Yeah, and I would say that I think we're still moving in that direction of what people are considering or calling the ascension, right? Which is really a raising of the vibration of your consciousness, of your thoughts. So that's what I feel. That's my belief. And so I couldn't say how long that would really take us, but for the time being where we're at, I feel that we're not, even a monk has negative thoughts, right? He just knows how to let the thought be the cloud and go by, but he's still human. He still has that aspect.
Yeah.
He could be enlightened, right? So I would say that's true, that I don't feel that one person's better than the other. I feel that in order for you, like you seeking what the truth is, that means a lot to you because you feel that what your desire is for everyone to really get along, for everyone to really see the other person, to be in relationship with them in a sense of connection, right? So I feel that if someone is in that intention, right, of wanting to have something so wonderful, then why wouldn't, right? Because you're always seeking into that space of truth, consciousness, because I think people might get that confused. So I'm not going to call it truth, even though you do, but it's in that connection with God. And so by you doing that and having and wanting that desire, right, that the experiences are going to come to you more because your intention of what you desire is so strongly around that, where, people...
If you're worthy.
Yeah. Well, again, like you said, the worthy is having the respect and also having that fear of not really knowing and asking the question, well, did this really happen, right?
Or sitting with the fear. Instead of avoiding it or denying it, you just say, paying attention to what you are as opposed to denying it, and being a viewer as opposed to being a victim of the actual experience.
Mm-hmm.
I'm viewing this situation. It doesn't make me this thing. Any experience you have, there's a sensation of you. And I guess that's what I'm saying, is tune into the sensation as opposed to the explanations and, blah, blah, blah. I've experienced this. I've done this. I'm this. No, there's a sensation of you. And when you can plug into that, the rest of the things might not matter as much. And that's what I'm saying, is when you can do that and you can feel the sensation of nature, which is, it's there. You and I are talking. We're talking on something. People listening are listening too, and they're listening on something. And it's just, there's a part and parcel to that is all the same thing. So, there's an interconnectedness there, and therefore, listening to that sensation of nature probably is a composite of many things that very well come in different forms. But if you can find that place, you can find that feel, and you can take your feel and then you can differentiate your feel from another feel, which is another thing I was trying to tell you, which is tricky, but you can do it. And one of the key things, I don't know if I told you this, I don't know if I need some explanation on this, but there's a feeling to things, and there's a feeling to yourself. And the feeling to yourself doesn't have to do as much with what you're saying or what you're doing as what your sensation is. And then there's a sensation with, let's just say, because it would be easier, another person. So if you're trying to connect with that sensation of the other person, when you do that well, you're going to feel things inside of them. But that's difficult because you don't know if it's something that you're feeling or something that they're feeling. But one of the things that is kind of a telltale is if you find yourself saying, well, I don't really know if I'm feeling inside them, but you can't at the same time say you're not. You have to be really discerning with yourself. You can't be so simplistic as to say, yes, I'm doing this. Because if you don't do that, it will develop. And if you do that, if you take the easy way out and defend something that you don't have always a valid point to defend, if you don't do that, then it can grow in you. You're looking, you're searching. The truth is is not something that someone gives you directions to. It's something that
right.
you have to feel out. And as you do, it shows up for you.
Yeah,
I
love it.
It has for me. But why, I don't really know. And how or to what means is very interesting why it does
it
that
very
way.
good. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. I really appreciate it and sharing your experiences and your take on it, because it's just a really fascinating subject. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the listeners, who out there who joined us today and the ones who will be joining us via YouTube. We thank you. Please follow, subscribe, comment, and like us. And you can join me this Thursday for the next show, Food Freedom, How to End the Cycle of Binging with Debbie Lichter. So thank you all again, and thank you so much to our guest who shared his experiences and joined the show tonight. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Bye, everyone.
Bye.